My job is the service trip coordinator for Timmy Global Health, which is a nonprofit organization based out of Indianapolis, Indiana. So I work with all of our students and medical professionals to coordinate our short-term service trips. I have now come to my current position through a couple of different avenues. I was involved in the Center for Student Leadership, Ethics, and Public Service here at NC State in their alternative service break program, and they directed me towards a student leadership opportunity where I was able to lead an alternative service break trip that turned into involvement with the nonprofit I now work for. I grew up in North Carolina. I grew up about 30 minutes from NC State and never expected to be this close to home for college, but it ended up being by far the best option, and I loved every minute of it. But as I was thinking about what was next for me and what would be coming after undergraduate, I knew that I was ready to go somewhere different and have a different life experience outside of the confines of Raleigh-Durham. That was a difficult process. I think it was made easier by the fact that much of my community in the Raleigh-Durham area would be leaving Raleigh at the same time as me, and so that made it a little bit less scary, but it was still difficult to consider going somewhere that I had never been before. I essentially moved to Indianapolis knowing nobody. Seek community where you can, because that makes everything more comfortable, and whether that is in a faith-based organization, a church or otherwise, or with a group that aligns with an activity that you enjoy. I think a lot of my training has been both formal and informal, so both through the courses that I've been a part of, several different classes, both in the nutrition department, some public health nutrition courses, as well as community nutrition definitely prepared me for building lesson plans and developing teaching skills for working with my students. I also, in the nonprofit minor, some of my courses prepared me for different challenges that I would face in my career. And then finally, just different leadership roles that I've experienced. Service learning experience as an ASB team leader definitely prepared me to be the ultimate team leader, and a couple of different other experiences organizing groups, both through NC State's Nutrition Club and other organizations on campus. I was very fortunate that I spent a lot of my college experience not only being involved on campus, but also in the community outside. I had an internship with Interfaith Food Shuttle, which was incredibly transformative and pointing me to what I was interested within the nutrition sector. I also had a wonderful experience traveling abroad while I was in college, and I think that absolutely transformed me. I pretty much spent every summer abroad because I was able to find different jobs or grants that would pay for my travel, and I highly recommend doing that. I think sometimes students think that they can't travel because it's too expensive or you can't take the time away, but there are opportunities out there, so I would just encourage you to go and look for them. I was also involved in research at NC State in the FB&S department, and that provided an additional experience to get to know people within the department and learn more about specific topics that you might not discover in the classroom. And it also helped to apply a lot of the topics that I was learning in the classroom. I would definitely say that each of those experiences helped to transform me and direct me to where I am now and also where I'm intending to go in the future. So I actually am now considering going to graduate school for something that I never really expected to do throughout my undergraduate experience. I'm now looking at an accelerated nursing program with potential for either nurse practitioner experience or something like that later on. And a lot of the reason that I have moved towards that is because I've heard some advice from nurses and those with masters in public health that for someone who's interested in a job that would require an MPH, a lot of that experience is transferable to nursing, but not the other way around. A typical day for me is not typical. There are about 10 of us that work in the office, and we all work very closely together. But that allows for great camaraderie and community building, which is one of my favorite aspects of my job. I also have a lot of different meetings with the student groups that I'm with. Sometimes there's a delivery coming into my office, and I have to take time out of my day to make sure that people have picked up their medications they're taking, or medications are coming in and need to be sorted, or I need to drive over to the Guatemalan restaurant to make sure that a shipment is going out for us. So a typical day for me is incredibly variable, but I love that part of my job. I would say definitely one of the greatest benefits of my job is the international travel experience that I've gained. I probably travel about once a quarter for my job, so that allows me some time to be able to be reinvigorated and reminded of the purpose of my work. So like this last week, for example, I was in the Dominican Republic with one of our groups, and that provides me with a chance to practice some of my Spanish. So sometimes I'm filling an interpreting role. Sometimes I'm just communicating with our patients, trying to make sure that they understand what's going on. Sometimes I'm coordinating reflections with our student groups, or preparing student leaders for what they might have going on later in the day. A lot of it is empowerment based for me. So whether that is preparing a student leader to facilitate a discussion rather than me actually facilitating that discussion, I'm helping them determine what questions are they going to ask and how are they going to go about doing that. Or working with some of our community health promoters to make sure that they're prepared for the clinic day, so that rather than me directing the flow and making sure that patients know where they're going from point A to point B, our health promoters are the face of that. It's less glamorous than it sounds, but still incredible work experience. I also do moonlight a little bit as our public health education developer, and so for all of our clinics that we do, we have health education topics that we provide to our patients based off of the different diagnoses that they've received. And so in each of those health education topics that I've developed and been continuing to develop, I've built in some nutrition education. I was a little nervous upon graduation. I had no idea what the next chapter of my life was going to look like, and like many undergrads, I did a lot during my time, and was by all means successful during my undergraduate career, and I was a little afraid about what it was going to look like the day after graduation when all of those successes weren't behind me anymore. And so that was definitely a fear that I had coming out of graduation, and I would just say that one of the biggest accomplishments that I've had is that I have come to be at peace with post-grad life and life as an adult. And so that seems like a really vague accomplishment to have, but I think it's just been a huge growing and learning experience.